Anatomy fans, we get to talk about an undervalued and unsung hero of the body, and that is the lymphatic system. So why do we care? So many reasons, so many important reasons. First of all, if you didn't have the lymphatic system, you'd be dead within 24 to 48 hours. Also, you have approximately 2 times the length of lymphatic vessels than you do of vessels in the circulatory system, which means that the lymphatic system is going to move and handle approximately twice the volume of fluid, lymph, that the circulatory system handles. I want you to remember this image that's on the right-hand side of your screen. The little green dots that you see are lymph nodes, and there are approximately 400 to 800 of them in your body, and they tend to be clustered in certain areas. And you'll see that they are interconnected by lymphatic vessels, which provide pathways through which lymph moves. So let's proceed. Hello. There we go. What's in the lymphatic system? Lymphatic vessels containing lymph, lymph nodes. We'll also talk about the spleen and the thymus. The lymphatic system is closely associated with the cardiovascular system, but it is not the same thing. Lymph is also not going to move through the body by the action of the heart. There is no pump in the lymphatic system. 3 major functions: keeping the appropriate fluid balance between tissues, lymphatic vessels, and in the circulatory system. You will find, and we'll talk more about this in the digestive system, small intestine will actually send the fairly large fat particles that are the byproducts of fat digestion into the lymphatic system. And from there, they will move into the circulatory system to get moved off to the liver for processing. And as everybody knows, lymphatic system goes hand in hand with our incredible, amazing immune system. What is lymph? It's basically a derivative of plasma, except it does not contain plasma proteins, which you'll remember are simply too large to get pushed out of capillaries. So you're going to have fluid, water, and small particles, ions, molecules that are pushed out of capillary beds into tissue. You'll remember, as we said, that fluid is going to have about the same composition of plasma, except those large plasma proteins, which are going to have to be hanging out in the circulatory system because they're just too big to get out of capillaries. The filtration from plasma is going to be greater than the amount that is reabsorbed into the circulatory system, which means that you are going to have a net formation of fluid that forms in your interstitial spaces in the tissues. So how do we get lymph from tissues? How do you get that tissue fluid from the tissues back into lymph vessels? Totally cool mechanism that we'll talk about when we talk about lymphatic capillaries. This is going to be important because it's going to prevent edema. What does lymph do? We know that it is going to be important for moving fat particles from the small intestines through the circulatory system up to the liver for processing. The lymph is actually that excess tissue fluid that has entered a lymphatic capillary and then other larger lymphatic vessels. It's also going to act to return small proteins and other small molecules that are filtered out of those capillary beds back into blood. And you probably have figured this out if you didn't know it already. Anything that is a foreign particle, so toxins, pathogens, dead red blood cells, will be moved off to lymph nodes for destruction or degradation. We're going to stop here. No, we're not. We're going to talk about lymphatic movement. Yes, we're not going to talk about vessels in this section, but we are going to talk about the movement of lymph. Remember, guys, don't get this wrong. Ever. The lymphatic system is separate from the cardiovascular system and is not attached to the heart. So the movement of the heart, the actions of the heart do not move lymph. So how do we move it? Skeletal muscle. Contraction of skeletal muscle helps move lymph. And that is why you see a movement, no pun intended, in hospitals and residential homes for bedridden people to active rest. So they get up or they're moving their skeletal muscles in one way or another in order to help move lymph through the body and prevent edema. Some of the larger lymphatic vessels will have smooth muscle in their walls, and contraction of that will also move lymph. In addition, there are going to be pressure changes in the thoracic cavity thanks to breathing, and those pressure changes will also help move lymph. What are the two major muscles of respiration that are going to be responsible for changes of pressure in the thoracic cavity? You got it. External intercostal muscles and the diaphragm. Remember this, if there is a problem with the movement of lymph, you will end up with edema. And this is where I'm going to stop, and we'll talk about lymphatic vessels in the next section. Stay tuned for more.